Hello, fabulous friends, fans, and superstars. Welcome to Synchronicity Web TV. I am your host, Nadiya Shah, and this is your moment of synchronicity. Well, this is very exciting for me to celebrate with you once again, the one and only Cameron Allen. Now, you've seen Cameron Allen on my channel before. You've seen him at Synchronicity University before, because he is just that good. He is just that brilliant. I came to know him as this person who has this wonderful way of understanding the sky and the astrology chart from a holistic health perspective. And he really lives it. And his own advice has been very, very helpful to me as well. Now, the really big news as well is that it is going to be Cameron that is going to be part of the conference event of the year, what I'm calling the conference event of the year. The London School of Astrology and Synchronicity University have joined forces for the Autumn Equinox event. It is called Embracing the Community, a celebration of Astrologies. You should see some very big dog astrologers on your screen right now. And of course, Cameron is among them, very well deserved. And there's a limited use coupon code that is available as well, so you can get 50% off. And the conference is happening very soon from the time that this interview is posting. So Cameron began his path understanding mind-body awareness with a degree in health and sports science and psychology. Seeing that there was more to understand outside of the colonized education system, he began seeking understanding through direct experience with nature, astrology, herbalism, yoga, root work, and other indigenous modalities. His website is cadreamplanet.com, and you can find him online and everywhere. Cameron, welcome. Thank you for being here.
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm glad to be back. It's always exciting to share space.
Absolutely. And especially because every time that I do connect with you, I feel like something in me connects more deeply as well. So you have this very healing way. Of course, you have the knowledge as well, but it is very obvious that you have a very holistic understanding of the sky and the chart. So what does that mean to you to have a holistic understanding? How do you define holistic?
Yeah, so my version of holistic understanding is, first off, it's one that's ever expanding. And also it's one that has to do with myself in relationship with all other things. So like my environment, my family, the food that I ate today, where that food came from, and just like trying to feel into how I'm in connection and interrelating with that, but also obviously like the stars. So the planets, the fixed stars, all the asteroids too. Like I've been like even doing like meditations with like asteroids where the moon goes over the asteroids and like feel like my relationship with it. And so my version of holistic is just one in which seeing myself as part of the whole and then feeling into that and trying to feel the interconnectivity and allow myself to blossom forth from there. So that's holistic. And, and that's also going to go into like the physical health and how the physical health corresponds with the emotional, psychological well-being, and then the sole purpose of one's life. And how all those things, the symbols speak and how they're going to say the same thing, but on different layers of reality in the chart. And so that's what I think holistic is.
Wow. So the symbols speak, but on different layers of reality. Can you give us an example of that?
Yeah, definitely. So like, let's say somebody has something going on with Mars. They might have something going on with their adrenal glands on the physical level. On the emotional, psychological level, they could either, because I tend to see the expression of the planets be on two sides and then inviting harmony or trying to find some sense of like balance and truth. So on one side, somebody could be like very angry all the time, and that's why their adrenal glands are amped up. And then on the other side, they could be repressing their expression or their drive or their passion or how they want to assert themselves. And that would put them in a fight or flight mode, and because they feel essentially lack of courage. Like they're not able to express the courageousness that they have within them. And so that will also get the adrenal glands going. And then on a spiritual level, where are they trying to go instinctually in this life, right? And Mars is like inviting them into that process in every single moment. But first one has to tap into what is the primal now? What does my body want to do? What feels true? What would I do if I stopped thinking about it and just acted on it? And the soul is like inviting us to do that moment to moment to moment to moment, just like get like go, 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 and then when we can really tap into Mars, then it can be like very go, 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 but it doesn't have to be in a way that messes with our adrenal glands. It could be in a way it's like, I'm so in touch with myself that I know I just want to be still in that peace. And then I go this way and then I come back. And then I go that way and then I come back. Because Mars is in temperate heat. It's the heat that is just like very, very strong and potent. It takes something from essentially not moving to a burst of energy moving forth. And so we don't want to be Mars 24/7 because that's burnout. But through practices like martial arts and things like that, I've learned like it's not about like just having this like very strong, potent Mars energy always at play. It's about sometimes like waiting, blocking, hitting, and just like, so learning how to like tune into Mars from all of those lenses and perspectives, that's like an example. And then there's like plants that go with it. And then there's like other practices that go with it. So that's a version.
It's powerful to consider how we are complex, right? Like, for example, if we just look at the planets, just to keep it simple for right now, if we just look at the planets, all of these planets express themselves through us, right? There are these archetypal energies that express themselves through us. And if we're not wanting to pay attention or not wanting to look at one of these energies within us or acknowledge that it's there and it has needs, then it finds ways to come out. And so it's interesting because I've always focused on how is it showing up in life? Like, for example, going back to Mars, as you were saying, if it is that you're not tapping into your Mars consciously, are things happening in life that make you mad, right? Or are things happening in life that are provoking you and encouraging you to feel something more deeply, to feel a rise within you? But as you're sharing, I'm thinking about how those planetary energies, it isn't just about events showing up in your life. It's also your own body, this own ecosystem that you have within you, reflecting what's happening and wanting attention, these planets wanting attention through changes happening within your body and your health.
Totally. Yeah. And just like the more and more that we can orient ourselves toward the mode of perception of that everything is a language, the deeper we can have a relationship with things, so just like, perceiving everything as a language and being really curious about it, right? And just being able to feel into it. What does it mean when like my lower back hurts? What does it mean when we all know, like when we get angry, our face either turns red or we get hot up here, and it's like, well, we know that language, but how many other things are being said by our body, by the environment, by the people that we're in relationship with through like nonverbal communication? What is everything saying all the time, and not to get overwhelmed or inviting nobody to get overwhelmed by that. But, when we allow ourselves to like unfold in that process, and everything speaks. And that's why I even said the symbols speak, because I'm referring to specifically astrology right now, but the symbols are everywhere all the time. They're in animals, they're in plants, they're in numbers, the alphabet, if you can even go into that. So it's everywhere.
It's incredible because what you're talking about is living with an awareness of synchronicity on the one hand, but also like not just looking at the stars and the sky, which is very, very valuable. Of course, we're astrologers here, so we do gaze upon the planets to cultivate wisdom. But what you're saying is gaze upon everything in your life, gaze upon the self, your own state, gaze upon how it is that your environment, your immediate environment is trying to speak to you, because all of these become ways in which we tap into these parts of ourselves.
Totally. And I became an astrologer primarily because the planets were the ones who became the universal translation device for me. So everything I see is as a language. It's like I do usually see it through the symbol of the planets. Even if it's expressing an animal or in a plant or this or that, it's like the symbols of the planets are like what stuck out to me the most, especially like the glyphs. Because they don't speak to me in words oftentimes, just like in energy and glyphs and like so symbols. They always speak, in specifically astrological ones.
Wow. Symbols always speak, and anything can be a symbol in some respect. Yeah.
1,000%.
And so you were speaking earlier about resolving energies. And I know that your talk for our upcoming conference, a celebration of astrologies, embracing the community. Again, it is a joint London School of Astrology and Synchronicity University event, a huge party that's going to take place over the Autumn Equinox weekend of 2021. And so you're going to be speaking on resolving paradox through the signs of the zodiac. So what does that mean to you to resolve paradox? How do you understand that? Like, just that phrasing is very interesting.
Yeah, the first time I even heard that type of phrasing was I was in, because I took a course with Mark Jones when I first started practicing astrology. And, the resolving of paradox is really about seeing a binary or two things and understanding that whenever we say something is a binary, we inherently are talking about one thing, right? And so even we think about a battery, and there's a plus side and a minus side. And we know that it's one battery, but let's say we say day and night, or we say masculine and feminine. People try to make that be two things that are different when they inherently exist together. There is no this without that. That is this is that, even though that is that and this is this. And and so it's it becomes that paradox. But first we have to accept paradox to be able to resolve it. And so so each zodiac sign, it has its opposite, which its opposite is it, right? Just like we can say the first house and the seventh house would be resolving that paradox is learning to understand how self is other, or how self is reflected in other, and how other is reflected in yourself. And being able to feel into that and see where there is no separation, actually, it allows us to deepen in how we can differentiate, but accept that it is no separation between those things. And then it becomes less of the spiritual floaty idea, and then also less of, oh, these two things are separate, right? And it resolves that paradox and it allows them to be a cohesive unit, while also being differentiated. So I'm going to do that with the zodiac signs.
I love it. So you said this, what did you just say? Spiritual floaty. This spiritual floaty, you said. So define that spiritual floaty. I know what you're talking about, but yeah, you define it.
Yeah, so, the example I always use is when people are like, everything is everything. And I'm like, okay, I hear you. And also how is that applicable? Or how do you know everything is everything? Or what does that really mean? Because I can grasp how it's true, but I also want to be able to, one of my teachers always says, we want to do things that we can sink our teeth into, So it's really about grounding it down. So the spiritual floaty idea is something that is pie in the sky. It's a concept and an idea. It sounds good. And when you say it or when somebody says it, it's you can feel that it's not an embodied truth, an actual experience that they have grasped and understood and brought down into reality. So that's the spiritual floatiness, which is totally fine. And it's also a step in some people's path, but it's still spiritual floatiness to me. So I'm going to call a spade a spade.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, you can feel it sometimes. And I think a part of that is also what's called spiritual bypass. Going back to Mars, Mars seems to want to be acknowledged right about now. But I think what can happen sometimes in spiritual floatiness, spiritual bypass, is that people don't want to acknowledge when they're angry. They don't want to go there. They don't want to say, wow, this hurt me, or this was, contrary to some truth within me, or that didn't feel respectful of me. They don't want to say that. They just want to go right to, I forgive that person. Oh, well, that doesn't really matter. Oh, I forgive them. They don't know what they're doing, and things like that. But I was giving this example to a friend the other day, and I was saying, think about Jesus Christ. And again, I'm not being religious here at all for everybody out there. Everybody knows I'm super inclusive. I love to study every religion out there. And I think there's wisdom in all religions out there. That's for sure. But there's the story of Jesus getting mad and going to the temple and flipping over the plates of money and saying, this is not what the divine is about. This is not what God is about. Look at this. What is this about? And that's anger. Like that's a very passionate, angry, that's him tapping into his Mars right there. And I think we see lots of examples of different spiritual leaders finding a way to tap into all of these archetypal energies. But yeah, sometimes you see that spiritual floatiness, spiritual bypass happening, where it's basically like you don't even want to acknowledge what wisdom could be there with your anger. Like, what is that anger rooted in? To actually sit with it and tap into the wisdom of it, because it may be speaking to some way in which you could empower yourself, and instead go right to forgiveness, go right to Neptune, right? Mm-hmm. Bypassing Mars and going right to Neptune. That's not a healthy way to live either.
Totally, yeah. And even with people that I've talked to about like resolving anger, I kind of go to that same thing and I literally tell them, I'm like, Mars is like instinctual and it rises out of you. And it's like, even if you think about what they call the natural zodiac and like how Aries is first and then, you know, Pisces is last. So it's like, actually forgiveness is the last step, but there's so many steps in between that process that to try to jump to that is delusional, right? So like this compassion that was supposed to be, you know, the loving, healing compassion of Pisces has now become the delusion of Pisces. And so like, I always just tell people that, you know, so it allows them to like be able to like, oh yeah, you're right. Like, let me get into this process and actually use it as spiritual jet fuel, you know?
Wow, spiritual jet fuel. Okay, so resolving paradoxes within the signs. How do you understand that?
Yeah, so one way I understand it is in the way that, let's say, so we have Leo. Well, let's do Taurus and Scorpio. So we have Taurus and Scorpio, and at Taurus, we know we have the neck, and we have like where we bring in nourishment into our mouth, and then at Scorpio we have where we're trying to get rid of it in the large intestines and the colon and stuff like that, right? So it's like those two organ systems seem like they're somewhere else, but actually they're one thing, you know? And then also we can think of Leo and Aquarius and how Leo is like about one's radiance and brilliance based off of their attunement to their divine brightness and radiance and brilliance. And then Aquarius is about the community and understanding that there is no separation. My brilliance is inherently affecting and working with the community at large. And those things are never separate. And those are things that we need to remember because in our society, there's so much polarization in general, well, in the space and time that we're in right now, but in general as well, because some people are like, oh, I don't want to be cocky about something. And I'm like, no, I need to learn how to be brilliant because if I'm not brilliant, I'm not helping the community with my unique individuality, right? So my brilliance, Leo, and then with the community, Aquarius, and helping humanity through my greatness, through my brilliance and shining, you know? So being able to resolve paradoxes in that way, it allows us to be able to shine, but also know it's not about me. It's not about me. But also it's 1,000% about me because it's my gifts. And I came here to shine. And I wasn't sent here to do nothing. I was sent here to do something. And that is in connection with the community. So that's a resolution of the paradox and also the paradox of cardiovascular system, right? Like at Leo, the blood pumps in the heart. And then Aquarius is like this, is sending it back up the calf muscles and back to the heart, the vasculature, which oftentimes gets overlooked, that it's cardiovascular. And people focus on the cardio and the heart pumping. But anyway, I'm probably going to get into that too.
I love it. Yeah, I love it because you're looking at it so holistically. You're like going back to that word that you explained at the beginning of the video. You're looking at it in terms of understanding the body, but then that also helps us to understand the larger principle as well and how that energy is playing out in the communities. And so for Leo, yes, and I have seen this again and again. I'll tell you because I've had the great privilege. It was about a year ago that I started really expanding my school and having brilliant teachers like yourself join us and teach students at Synchronicity University. And I'll tell you the one thing that stands out again and again, the difference between someone who's really able to be effective and really reach students versus those who maybe don't, it is that, just as you explained, owning your brilliance. It is really that simple. The people who own their brilliance, because they're all brilliant. I wouldn't invite them unless I thought they were brilliant. and I saw something that they were doing out there that I thought was really amazing, and I wanted them to come to my school. So the fact that I invite them means that I acknowledge their brilliance. But do they acknowledge their brilliance? That can be another thing altogether. And the teachers who really are able to understand and be in their brilliance, they're able to affect the community of students at my school so much more. And also you see them affecting a larger community in their own way as well, so much more as well. But the root is those very two factors you spoke about, the desire for contribution to something larger, but then it has to be rooted in that center, that sense of self that allows you to make that much more of an impact. That is always the difference. It's not any difference of knowledge. It's not any difference of ability. It's how much that person can show up in that moment, connected to their brilliance, connected to their heart, because the brilliance is there.
Yeah. It's beautiful. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it allows us to be so much more impactful. And I love what you shared earlier about this idea of consumption and elimination, how it is so interconnected as well in terms of the Taurus and Scorpio paradox. But there are dark sides to the paradoxes as well, right? Can you share one example of maybe a dark side? Because we're focused right now on the more enlightened sides of this. But I think earlier, for example, you spoke about Pisces. Like Pisces can be inspiration and compassion, but it can also be delusion. And so the paradox to that, the opposite end is with Virgo, right? And so how would you understand that polarity there?
Yeah, so in Virgo is a great one. I'm glad that you brought that one up. So the way in which, so Virgo is an earth sign and is ruled by Mercury, right? So the way that Earth is actually organized, as far as informationally speaking, like it's a certain type of way. The way nature is organized is a certain way. And as humans, oftentimes we don't organize ourselves in that way. And so because we don't have the correct information that's actually just like practical and grounded in reality, we experience many delusions, and we also at Virgo, it's like about the digestive tract as a whole. And when the digestive tract as a whole is out of whack and is not correctly organized, Virgo, right? It's like the mental organization factor is just like everywhere and it's scattered. And it's like, like the body can feel like, well, what's going on? Something's wrong here, right? And when that happens, in the greater system of the human body, the lymphatic system begins to have issues and problems. So the immune system overall becomes problematic. And then oftentimes things show up like autoimmune diseases, right? And it becomes systemic because the body is confused because the way that the information that we're taking in as far as food, whether it's like GMO or it's just like we have like loads of anxiety and we can feel like something's wrong here. So then it goes out and that like delusion based off of how we have mentally organized reality becomes like a problem in the whole system, and it creates confusion and illness and just illusions overall. So that's the way I would look at it. And so we need to come back to nature is what I wanted to say there too as well. It's like there's a certain way that things are organized, and I really have like a big heart for Virgo energy because when they think something is wrong, it's because oftentimes there is something wrong, but we're not able to identify it correctly because of the information that we've been fed and internalized. And it's like, wait, something's wrong here. No, this isn't right. They know it. They can feel it. And honestly, what we've been fed as far as food and as far as information, a lot of it has been incorrect. So it is wrong. And that creates a lot of delusions and illusions and also self-sacrificing things we do and stuff like that.
And so the way to resolve the energy then would be to listen to oneself, whether that's intuitively and physically as well, and to be open to other ways of understanding information. Is that how you see it?
Yeah. I would say that for sure. And I'm going to make sure I give a practice specifically during my lecture so that people can tap into it in an embodied way, so they can feel into like what it really means to resolve that paradox in a way that just like they'll never have to even think about it again. And they can come straight back to it and keep blossoming forth with that practice.
Well, that sounds incredible. So your talk is going to not only be informative, but there will be this practical element to it as well. We're going to actually get to experience the resolution of the paradox within ourselves during your talk.
Totally.
Awesome. Cameron, thank you so much for being here. You know, I appreciate you. I think you're so brilliant. I love how you stepped up and are part of this event. And you guys just know that Cameron Allen is so popular at Synchronicity University. You'll be seeing more of him in 2022 as well. And I'm really very, very excited about that because he certainly is shining very brightly in astrology today. And I have no doubt his light will continue to just shine brighter and brighter as you continue to make your contribution to the collective, to the community, as you do your unique light, sharing your unique light. So thank you, Cameron.
Thank you. I appreciate you so much. It's always nice to catch up with you.
Yeah, I know. Isn't it always fun? And thank you, everybody out there. Remember, Cameron Allen is part of the Embracing the Community, a celebration of Astrologies Autumn Equinox event. I am calling it the conference event of the year, and a limited use discount code is still available for use. I think by the time this posts, we're about a week or about 10 days away. So the conference event is coming up very soon. Links are in the description below. Cameron, thank you again. And thank you everybody out there for watching. And until we connect again, take care. Bye.